Although the RUGA resettlement plan by President Muhammadu Buhari has been suspended at the moment, it has continued to dominate debates all across different platforms. Here we are trying to find out what Nigerians in diaspora think about the RUGA settlement or other plans to resettle cattle herders. And to have that conversation right here on Rootstv, I have Barrister Cosmos Anyakujo, who's a doctor of law, but he also resides in the UK. Good to have you on the show.
Very happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. So what do you, you weren't in the country when the RUGA resettlement plan came in and even when it was suspended. But what are your thoughts about RUGA, and what are people, let's say in the UK, that you are very aware about thinking about it, and then people outside of Nigeria in general?
Thank you very much, Gloria. For people in the country, of course, they've been talking about the security implications of it and so forth. But outside the country, what Nigerians in diaspora loathe about this is because it accentuates our division in our country. It shows to the outside world that Nigeria is not a nation. We don't have that cohesion in our country. So there are people with tribal identities. I'm Yoruba, do I want to go with the western, southwestern Nigeria, the Igbos, and they have associations, big world, global associations, World Igbo Congress and things like that. And they want to secede from the country. So this RUGA has accentuated in a very big way the divisions that we have, and have clearly demonstrated to the outside world that Nigeria is not a nation and that cohesion is lacking in our country.
Well, for part of the reasons, according to the presidency, for proposing RUGA settlement is to settle, or rather quell or curb, the farmer-herder crisis that I have to say even predates this administration. So in terms of being the right solution for farmer-herder crisis, do you think the president is on the right path, or people who are opposed to this have a better idea?
I think people opposed to this have a better idea. And with respect to Mr. President, there are two things involved. One is the cultural identity of the nomadic herders. So they move from place to place to trade. And this is the way business was done for the hundreds, centuries before the 1900s, should we say, or since we got independence. But now the world is a global village. More business is done online than offline, I would think, in the world, if you look at volume of it. And the financial institutions are so much more sophisticated than it used to be. So the argument for those people who are opposing Mr. President's proposal is that you can be in one place, graze your animals, and then be able to sell it elsewhere. You don't have to walk hundreds of kilometers. And there's a lot of disruption that this migration causes. Although it is seasonal, it's very disruptive. First of all, it's disruptive to local farmers whose crops are eaten along the way, because the animals feed along the way, you see, all the way they go. And secondly, we find them in the cities. You're going to walk in the morning and there is a herd of cows on the way. You've got to stop, and so forth.
A lot of people are opposed to this because they cannot understand why the federal government is trying to use taxpayers' money, the country's resources, to settle a particular tribe or a group of people. And to those people who feel probably this is a waste of taxpayers' money, do you agree, or do you think each region has its own problems and this is what the president wants to do for this particular region that should work? Or is there anything else? Because I have heard someone actually say that the Fulanis are the most cheated tribe in Nigeria. What are your thoughts?
We must get away from trying to entrench economic values only because they relate to a certain cultural sensitivity. You see, so if the herders, this is what they like to do. We have to encourage them to do that. It's for the benefit of the country. We eat cows, we eat meat, and it is necessary, you see, but we have to organize it in a certain way. For government to try to do this and say they're going to put federal funds into doing that, that is not a bad problem, actually, because under the legislative principles in the Constitution, government should do everything to encourage the economic development of Nigerians. But what it will raise is the fact that people from the East will say, well, we are very good at manufacturing. What have you done for us? Where are the roads? Why don't we have the port in Calabar, in Port Harcourt opened? You have a dry port going up to Kaduna. Why don't you open? It's better for us to bring in our goods from here instead of going to Lagos. See all what it does for the roads between Lagos and Shagamu and so forth. Why do we have to have the majority of our imports come from Lagos? Open the port for us. This is what we want. This is what... Then the Westerners might say something else, you see. So what I'm trying to say is that if we see there is a balance in fairness and justice in the disbursement or the use of government funds, I'm sure that people would not agitate in this negative fashion that we have now.
A whole lot of things to talk about here when it comes to the RUGA settlement. Even though the president has suspended it, there are beliefs that it will be repackaged, and we will still keep talking about resettling of cartel herders. So do us a favor and go to the comment section of this video and give us your thoughts on what we have discussed.